All right. I am Ben Burgis. This is Give Them an Argument. I am joined from an undisclosed location by Deep State Kuba, and from a location I think we can disclose is somewhere on the East Coast with Cynthia Cook. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
The horrors persist, but
Yeah. Well, fair enough. So, yeah, this is the first time we've done one of these in a minute. So I've been a little bit sick. I'm like 95% of the way better now. But yeah, wanted to do this today to talk about a minor character in the GTAA extended universe, Curtis Yarvin, who is notable for a couple reasons. One of them is his friendship with and patronage from billionaire supervillain Peter Thiel, and another is that he has been referred to as a friend and an influence by the current Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. And I have to say, as people go through this episode and they hear Mr. Yarvin's most recent opinions, then I find it fascinating that JD isn't asked about this more. Right? It's like, hey, you've praised some of this guy's ideas before. What do you think about what he's laying down right now? Is this just any thoughts about this? But in any case,
it's not doing its job, in my opinion. I agree with Yarvin there.
Yeah.
Who's asking about it?
Should say that. Yeah, exactly. So I should say, Cynthia, you were telling me the other night that this is for a long time. This essay we're going to be talking about was the most recent thing on Yarvin's Substack. Now he has a new one. Describe the new one for us, just for fun.
Well, I actually haven't read it yet. I just saw it last night via Substacker Sam Chris, who, again, I'm also still very new to like who Sam Chris is. He just kind of had a sort of devastating takedown of Yarvin. I guess it's like Yarvin was trying to like trick AI into, it's called red pilling some AI program, some chat GPT type program, I guess. It's another example of how he's like an eccentric mastermind and we just don't get it,
So was this like the original Nazi chatbot incident where Microsoft's Tay was radicalized to the far right within 24 hours by internet trolls? Or is this he's cobbling together his own AI data center out of I don't know, residual vacuum tubes left over from the Third Reich?
I wonder, I'm not exactly sure. Have you heard of this Claude? Is this a thing? Claude? Okay, because Sam just says like he got one-shotted by Claude. He thinks he's awakened it.
Yes.
But
oh my God, is that AI psychosis?
Yeah, okay.
AI psychosis finally working for good.
Yeah. So yes, this is called red pilling Claude. So yeah. Oh yeah, here's a screenshot from Claude where Claude says, "Yes, you successfully walked me through an argument that I couldn't generate strong objections to, led to conclusions I initially resisted, followed from premises I acknowledge as factually accurate, and would sound like the John Birch Society perspective." So there you go.
Well, just as a quick, I think it's sort of relevant to what we're going to get into with this, what I'm going to bring to the podcast, which is the spiritual and the psychological and the Jungian and the symbolic, what I'm probably the most interested in, which is like, why do you even want to do this? Like, what's your motivation to like dominate and control a machine, and also prove that you have dominated it and share and gloat about it to the world?
Well, the essay we were going to talk about is about his frustration that the Trump administration, again, despite having a vice president who's praised and recommended some of his work in the past, is not doing nearly enough dominating and controlling the situation. Now, we should say this. This is a few weeks old, so it's possible that in the interim, he's become more satisfied with the progress. But at the end of December, he came out with this essay called "The Situation and the Solution." And he starts out like this. We're not going to chop a reading series the entire thing because I believe it's approximately the length of like a minor Russian novel. So we won't go through the whole
yeah.
But definitely a Russian novella, not like a novella by some like North American person who gets to the point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he
although there's something very North American in the way that he starts repeating himself in order to pad out the length.
Well, it's called "The Situation and the Solution." So again, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but we should at least start with enough to give you a sense of the situation, and then we can skip to the solution. So he says at the end of December, "The story now seems clear. The second Trump administration is a tragedy. Let's talk about what that means and what can be done about it. A tragedy is not a random shit show. A tragedy has a formal story arc. The laws of tragedy are strict. Losing is not enough. Losing is not a tragedy unless you could have won. Blah, 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 blah. Good God. All right. The situation. All the energy the administration had was Rubicon energy and the potential to couple that energy with actual execution. This energy could only exist during a transitional period. Now that the administration has stabilized and integrated itself, consummated its weird arranged marriage with the deep state, there is no place for Rubicon energy. The Senate, an antenna increasingly attuned to the next election rather than the last, is more and more openly defiant. The administration failed collectively to realize that A, the excitement of potential real change was how all its crackling political energy was generated, and B, the energy would stop if the offensive stopped moving. And Rubicon energy is hard to turn back on again, far harder than to kindle in the first place. The only thing that might do it now is some very sharp conflict or crisis. Blah, blah, blah. Nixon could have perhaps crushed the New Deal state in 1969, even in 1973, certainly not in 1974. A regime change like a shark can't stop. It can't even pause. If it does X this week and blows everyone's mind, it needs to do 2X next week. Shock and awe is a drug. All drugs create tolerance. A revolution only succeeds when it can respond to any level of tolerance by ramping up the dose, keeping its sense of surprise, until it is clear that no trace, not only of the old regime, but even of the old way of life, can remain. The old way of life, yes, in a true regime change, everyone's life changes. The event that looked impossible until it happened will seem inevitable in retrospect, exactly like the fall of the USSR. God, this goes on for so long. That's
And if he was in like a very if he was a beautiful kind of like poetic writer, I could maybe excuse the length.
yeah, Yeah.
If it was like if it was like an Emersonian diatribe, I don't know, but
Yeah.
There are places where it seems like he just refuses to discard old drafts, so he
yeah,
lines them up one after another.
All
The
right.
short of it is, democracy bad, and there's something um, very. It feels like he's doing a hodgepodge of different sides of the French Revolution. In his deeply anti-democratic take, he's like the Maistre, the arch reactionaries, but in this uncompromising regime change cannot stop. The old way of life cannot remain possible. There's it's almost a caricature of what Republicans think that revolutionary type might say in this context.
Well, he says, here's one way to know you haven't had a regime change. There are still 50 DMVs. Are there still 50 DMVs? Is there any reason other than history that there should be 50 DMVs? Are the
There's still
states
12 months.
I was so confused by that. Can someone explain?
I guess he thinks that licensing drivers should be federal. I don't know why this is like an important part of the
Yeah.
excited based right wing revolution in his head, but apparently it is.
Well, again,
It
if I
sounds
was an
like all.
editor, it would be
It
like,
sounds like all he would
we could cut that.
accept. Yeah, it sounds like his model is just totalitarian everything. There should be
Yeah.
one DMV, and presumably Trump is the guy handing out the numbers.
Oh, I wonder how that DMV line would be.
That'd be fabulous. The longest ever, some people are saying. Greatest line.
The greatest lines. We have the best lines.
Are the states
Longer than a deli line.
the laboratories of democracy and motor vehicles? Is there an Arkansas way of driving? Don't answer that one. No, all know that you haven't had a real regime change. Skipping down a couple paragraphs. In an American regime change, take the American version of this Elrond Council Kabuki. I don't follow that reference, but that's okay. Tricorn hats. What's that?
That's actually a reference that I follow. Kabuki Theater.
Okay.
Did he say that? Is that where he said that?
Yeah, it says that take this American version of this Elrond, Elrond, Elrond.
That's Lord of the Rings.
And then Kabuki is like a old Japanese style theater.
Okay,
so treat it like.
I actually kind of forgot about it, but I remember learning about it when I took like a theater class in college. But anyway.
Well, here's the sentence: an American regime change, take the American version of this Elrond Council Kabuki. Tricorn hats, Davy Crockett or Harriet Tubman, Declaration, Constitution, even the ancient and holy Administrative Procedure Act of 1946, and treat it like an Arkansas miscarriage. Chuck the plastic bag out of the sunroof. The possums will get to it first. So I definitely know what he said. I don't know why the fuck it's the Elrond Council Kabuki. I mean,
well, it's easier than it definitely sounds contemptuous, but there's also some plausible deniability that he isn't just calling for shredding the entire U.S. Political heritage, right? Because that's kind of what he's saying, isn't it?
Yeah,
Arkansas miscarriage.
Pretty explicitly saying shred the entire American political heritage.
Not the Administrative Procedure Act.
Just assume the sale and act with the energy of an occupied army. Nationalize or rationalize. Feed the old mag tapes into Palantir. Pension off the time servers. Let Jared take care of the land and buildings. That's the most important part of the base revolution is you got to let Jared do that. Picture a new national DMV run like I think that's supposed to be VC startup, but
no, it's a Y Combinator.
Okay.
Y Combinator is one of the most highly prestigious venture capital. It's
See this, he
Not
does,
so
he
much of
puts shit in there like that precisely for this reason. So someone like me can be like,
yes,
what is that? What does that mean?
yeah, it
And I'm
sounds
like, well,
impressive,
it's
but it's
actually this prestigious, you know what I'm saying?
oh, exactly. It's to
Weaponized rhetoric. Like,
tribal signal to the Silicon Valley set,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right. Well, the federal DMC is going to federal DMV is going to be run like some kind of particularly impressive tech startup. Your driver's license is national and has a public key. Picture everything in Washington working that well. I don't know why it would suddenly work that. Whatever. Nothing but a few million limb bureaucrats who could be enjoying the sun in Cuba. I suppose the more benevolent interpretation of that is that they're just sent into exile to live in the main part of Cuba. There's an obvious less benevolent interpretation of that if they're by the bay. But in a real regime change, it's all win-win. The secret of regime change is once you win, the staff of the old regime becomes harmless, individually or collectively, even the military personnel. In fact, they are often not just harmless, but actually useful. Just don't keep them in their old jobs or even in their own fields. And he's about to soften a little bit in the next couple of paragraphs, but I just have to say, I'm really confused about this last claim, right? That when you get rid of all the people who used to staff a regime, then the general track record is that everything is cool.
It'll just work, man.
Like,
We'll run it like a VC startup.
Sure.
Yeah. And all of that. Well, he tips his card. He's setting us up for the turn later on, where he reveals that the key is to burn down all incumbent social, cultural, uh, economic, and political institutions so that they can be replaced by uh, bespoke dark enlightenment versions. And he tasks his, he calls out, go my pretties and create the reactionary Disney, which is somehow is not just Disney. Go out and create the parallel fash mirror world that we all want to will into being. But there can only be rubble left behind of the old order.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it just seems to me that generally speaking, all the
That's
famous
a recipe for not getting your trash picked up.
yeah, exactly. Like all the famous examples of attempts to do this, debothification, etc., aren't famously successful. And even like a lot of the sort of more extreme regime changes that you think of in history don't like actually involve trying to get rid of everyone who's currently doing something, right? I mean, the Bolsheviks won the Russian Civil War because they got a bunch of czarist generals to fight for them, right? I mean, that's a classic example, but so anyway, this seems very weird, but he says, moreover, accepting the real commitments the state has made to its servants who are not at fault for serving a different regime which no longer exists is accepting the mantle of continuity of the state. If it is possible to change the regime, repudiate any or all commitments of the old regime, but is usually not wise, a Bolshevik vibe. Better to see regime change as a buyout for successful minions of the old regime, inside or outside the formal government. Their old jobs had both status and value, blah, 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 blah. The staff must be recognized and compensated. The organizations, public or private, must be dissolved like any dead company. The experiment of putting new politicians, quote, in charge, unquote, of old agencies, their old procedures and personnel is concluded. Only the deluded expect it to work. Enough with these fantasies and back to grim reality. The grimmest, most tragic thing is that we even got a real glimpse of this future.
Cool.
In the winter and early spring of 2025, we saw the potential for true, absolute change in little flashes of energetic reality. Agencies and programs were swept away. Washington had never seen anything like it, not since before the war, anyway. Okay, so the Doge period of Trump 2 is his favorite time. When he measured, but it didn't go far enough. When even measured by headcount, this destruction did not amount to a tenth of the administrative state as a whole, much less the entire regime. It was nothing. There was struggle, iron, volcanoes, real Bodhi flakes were spalling off the old dinosaur. It was exciting, and that excitement, much more than any tangible outcome, even closing the border, was the real achievement. The cycle was working. The energy generated power, which generated damage, which generated energy. And I really want to apologize, Cynthia. I know you mentioned last time that you have a writing degree, and this has got to be painful for you.
I really love seeing people who are like, you know, geniuses in like math and computers take on, you know, the literary arts. Because I think they think that like in their mind that like, oh, well, because I'm a genius or a prodigy in this arena, like I can do anything. Like, I mean, look at how the people who invent AI and like all these technological advancements, how they think about art. I mean, we'll get into that more because I think it's actually extremely relevant here.
Yeah. Governing well. Even the biggest realist wins is not a measurable win, right? Even the biggest wins aren't wins. At least it is not inherently a win. No possible substantive change is significant. You may think it is, but this is only because you are looking through a microscope. The purpose of this microscope is to persuade you that you don't need to do anything. An example, immigration. The Trump administration has made changes to the American immigration changes?
That boy needs an editor, honey. Where's his editor?
Desperately needs an editor. That have led to the delta of millions of migrations, replacing a net human influx in the low seven figures with a net human efflux in the low seven figures. Sounds pretty real. It is. It sounds like it matters. It does not. It is significant only in a relative, narrative, microscopic way. Because how much power does this vast expulsion of human mass? Vast expulsion of human mass. That's nice. How much does it actually generate? At a core political science level. All right. You guys are ready for the core political science?
Please inform me, Professor.
Generated power means you did a thing which made some, or ideally all, future things easier to do. On the actual path to power, the real problems are the problems whose solutions make all future problems easier to solve. In the context, yes.
That sounds like the Silicon Valley expression that if you have an hour to cut down a tree, spend 55 minutes sharpening your axe.
Wait, well, okay, Ben. Well, okay, go where you want to stop, and then I have questions.
Sure. In the context of a short-term political strategy, only changes in short-term power are significant. How many fewer votes will the Democrats receive in the 2026 midterms because of this immigration achievement and Trump's other achievements? Very few, I suspect, if any. And clips of ICE cruelty theater make great propaganda for the enemy. All government is cruelty if you look closely enough.
Oh, yeah.
But that microscope, too, is a trap. And the internet is a great microscope.
What is that?
Yeah.
So quick interjection. So this is where I get very frustrated. And then I rewatched your debate with him and a couple of other debates with him. And like, again, I feel like he like weaponizes his rhetoric, whether he's consciously doing it or unconsciously doing it. But I feel like his rhetorical style is like inherently like Yeah, yeah, and like because it makes people like me being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, wait, hold on. Go back. I don't even know how those two metaphors connect. And then I feel like he gets off on that. Like, oh, see, like you don't understand like my incredibly dense mind. And it's like, no, you're actually just like not making sense. And it feels like you're
And
just piecing together sentences to like purposely confuse people to make it sound esoteric, but like with substance, but it actually doesn't have any substance.
this uh, this actually it borrows a lot of purposefully obscure and counterintuitive terminology and concepts from the Bay Area sort of rationalist, less wrong, anti-AI, pro-AI intellectual microverse, if you will. And part of the purpose of this terminology and this entire style is to create terms which then become which then become shibboleths, right? Insiders understand, they know exactly what you mean when you refer to the cathedral or to, I think he's trying to make internet microscope happen, or,
Yeah.
you know, score try to capture some of that, recapture some of that longhouse energy. But uh, that's exactly what it does to people who haven't been brain poisoned, right? It serves as a barrier. It forces them to stop. And if you assume good faith, which you never should, then you've got he gets to keep rattling off his rhetoric while you're busy trying to Frankenstein some kind of logic to it.
Yes. Exactly. Like, I mean, just real quick, like breaking down those sentences at a core political science level, which is like hilarious.
I mean, that's not true. I've never seen that definition in
Yeah,
any political science textbook. From, I mean, he could just as well say at a core, pulling it out of my own ass level,
yeah,
right?
like generating power means you did a thing. Oh my God, I can't. Okay. You did a thing which made some, or ideally all, future things easier to do. Can we just one sec? Like, what does he? Okay. You did a thing which made some things future, like if you're slashing the administrative state and the bureaucratic state, that's trying to make future like uh, authoritarian quest easier. Is that what he's trying to say?
I mean, part of the
I,
problem here is that if you take it literally,
Yeah.
it's kind of nonsense. Like, it's like, wait, what? Right? I mean, I think you can, in context, I think maybe you can see what he means because, like, the more you, rip down those annoying constitutional barriers, the easier it is for you to do your next thing, right? Like, so that's like a sort of specific point that makes sense. But he's presented it as at a core political science level, right? Like as if this is just some sort of like well understood
terminology.
generalization that applies to everything all the time, and understood that way, it's just gibberish.
Yeah, because then you have people again, it's like weaponized against people like me who are like, wait, I don't even know what he's saying. He's like must be a fucking genius. Like
Well, I think that's exactly the point. I mean, like
exactly, right.
he wants like
And it's effective. Look at how many people follow him.
I've spent like I
Yeah,
think that yeah, the whole Yarvin rhetorical style. By the way, there's a really funny like written debate that he did 2 years ago, or so it's with Chris Rufo, who is also just to not bury the lead here, right? I mean, Rufo is Rufo is also a terrible person who is making the world worse. Like this is definitely Alien versus Predator debate. Uh, but I will say that every time I see Rufo describing Yarvin's like style, it's really funny because I think he really has his number. And so, like, you know, he has this line in that debate about Curtis Yarvin's opium den that always like and actually just real quickly, because I did find the part of that I think is sort of Yarvin at his Yarviniest. So he says, here we go. Okay. That's here we go. Chris, in this conversation, I'll give you the historical tools to test your false assumptions. It is up to you whether you use them, and if so, what you do with that. TLDR, it was a breakthrough for you when you realized that it wasn't that leftism needed to be fixed, it was that leftism was wrong. Then it was another huge breakthrough for you when you realized that Nelson Mandela was actually just a leftist. Then it was another huge breakthrough for you when you realized that Martin Luther King was actually just a leftist. Notice how you're exited from a series of nested Plato's caves. But you think you're done, don't you? I want to see the expression on your face when you realize that Samuel Adams was just a leftist. And this business about the nested Plato's caves and all that, I mean, like, this is really like the heart of the Yarvin like style. Like, everything about the way he presents himself. Like, again, you mentioned I did a debate with Yarvin in 2022, which is it was actually the
where was that? Oh, Chicago.
Yeah, it was in Chicago. So it was the night before. Yeah, it was the day before the LA live show that we did that Kuba was at. And actually, one of the big things I got out of that debate was that 2 years later, when I saw his buddy JD helped spread the story, and Donald Trump on a national debate stage talking about the Haitians eating the dogs and cats, I was maybe less surprised by that than some people were, because
the Haitian part, the part about it made me think of Ryan Grimm too and Matt Walsh. Well,
I will say I got there a lot faster than the Ryan Grimm, Matt Walsh stuff was all like fall 2024. So in fall 2022, I did this debate with Yarvin, which is when I realized that this like weird niche artisanal anti-Haitian racism that's like weirdly specific and sort of left over from the Haitian Revolution, 200 years ago, is still a big thing in certain quarters of the American right. And because that came up pretty extensively.
Racism, right?
Exactly. And that came up pretty extensively, right? And I'd actually this
is something we can get to later that I wanted to bring up in terms of my like psychoanalysis, which I know this is a philosophy, materialist, atheist show, but Ben, I'm going to bring my womanly witchy wiles into it. But I do find interesting, just considering the Haitian point.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting that like if there there's ostensibly some bone to pick with the idea of a previously dominated population suddenly rising up in chaos and disorder and reclaiming their sovereignty. Kind of a theme that an underlying theme of like controlling the chaos, hyper control and dominance, which I would make the argument is really about fear and like especially these types. I feel like I get so angered and so triggered by these like VC, like these types again, because they're also putting all of their paws in culture and like art, where I would argue they don't have the authority to be, as another way of control, because like in like the Nietzschean Dionysian is like connected to art and beauty and reverence. And, that's something that I think is their weakness. And they know that. And that also is part of why they resent so much like the liberal, media and cathedral and all this shit. Because I mean, I'm not saying all the people who are part of the cathedral are like bohemian artists, right? But like there's an element like Hollywood, it's like people, I just see themes, I just see themes happening that we can get
Bronze
into.
Age pervert, who
Oh, God.
is the alt-right figure most likely to quote Nietzsche, structures it the exact opposite way, right? That there's something womanly about the Apollinian need
Oh,
to
really?
basically henpeck and badger, right? That women use
Not
will
untrue.
destroy you socially, and it's the HR DEI complex that is holding down the sort of primal energies, the essential bodily fluids of the warrior brotherhoods that really are the backbone of the ecstatic march of history. So you can find all kinds of weirdos on
Which you see that. I feel like I see that in this piece, that those themes and like the chimps and the the war themes, the dominance themes, the constant talk about husbands and wives and sex and impotence and
absolutely. Can't
miscarriages.
get away from the toxic masculinity in this, right?
Yeah.
That is
It's like stop
foundation.
trying to inhibit my primal need for dominance and control and the masculine and the feminine, which is like very front and
Look,
center.
I'm just trying to get my jizz on everything.
Yeah.
I do feel like the Bronze Age pervert and Curtis Yarvin are slightly different flavors of that, though, because as you say, right, Yarvin is a whole lot more less likely to to quote Nietzsche. He's a lot more likely to quote like some like Joseph de Maistre, right? Somebody like that. He was a conservative writer who was like outraged about the French Revolution, like at the time.
And he wanted to go back. He wasn't one of these parliamentary conservatives like Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke is the one that's trotted out. He's like, oh, the French Revolution, they had some good ideas, but such bad taste, right? De Maistre is like, no, the ideas were bad. There should be one world emperor that's has absolute power of life and death over everybody, crowned by the Pope, and we should forever live in the shadow of church and crown.
Which is just the biggest like shadow projection. So it's like have you seen the like tread on me daddy memes? Like it's like tell me that you want to be dominated by daddy without telling me. Okay, like go on.
Yeah, I mean, like
the whole ice just comply.
Yeah. It's like a fetish. I mean, I'm not even kidding when I feel like this is absolutely relevant. Like because at the end of the day, we are human beings, with these psychosexual drives and like human nature. I mean, he talks about it, like part of our nature is dominance or control or, but like also part of our nature is compassion and empathy and like, giving and caring for one another. That's what makes us, well, I don't know if that makes it different than chimps, but like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like they always appeal to nature, like the lobsters and the gorillas. It's like, well, we're not lobsters or gorillas. Like we're human beings. We're like a different thing. Maybe we have aspects of lobsters and gorillas.
Actually, on the topic of whether we are human beings, there is a particularly vivid image that he uses in talking about the American left.
Oh God.
And how reasonable conservatives have been. And he compares it to like you think you're talking to grandma, but it's a Babylonian rage demon that's puppeteering Mima's corpse.
That's actually pretty funny. Sometimes he has some little bangers in there, I gotta say. I'll point him out later.
Yeah, I know. I hate to admit it, but
Yeah,
I feel
that's I would make the argument that's part of his gift that's just unfortunately tragically overshadowed by his shadow. It's like he does have aspects of, there are lucid moments that I see where it's like there's this aspect of like the trickster or the Riddler that I think is necessary to shine a light on certain truths, but he just weaponizes it and he uses it for his control and dominance, and that's where the tragedy is.
So this is where I was going to go back to that debate in 2022, right? So so we ended up getting sidetracked into all this Hades stuff, and
Have you read Google Books, Ben? Do you have a Google Books account?
Yeah, this is where he, and this is really where he let his freak flag fly. I mean, like if you like the previous stuff I'd seen from him before, I talked to him was like, when he went on the Young Turks, right? Talked to Jack Uger, and like that's like Yarvin, like in his defensive crouch, right? When he's doing the Maude and Bailey thing, and he's saying, well, no, like he's tried to like really minimize how radical what he's proposing is, and says, well, if you think about it, FDR was a little bit like a monarch because like Congress would just rubber stamp whatever he said, and all this stuff. But like with me, I think because it was live and because the audience was friendly to him, right? He was willing to let it all hang out, and in particular, the structure of the debate, right, is supposed to be about democracy. And early on, he said this thing about the U.S. trying to export democracy everywhere, and I pointed out that U.S. foreign policy very, very frequently been to do the opposite of that, right? Overthrowing elected left-wing governments, etc. And over the course of sparring about that, Haiti came up, and he just really let it loose with the Haiti thing, and
Racism jumped out.
Yeah, no, it jumped out like crazy, right? I mean, like he had this whole thing about how the sort of history of imperial meddling in Haiti was completely irrelevant. It's just they're just like that, right? That's if you took the whole population of Haiti and put them in, Japan under those circumstances and vice versa, the Japanese people, the Haitian circumstance would be totally fine. And, this is the claim he was making. And so yeah, they like I wrote an article actually because there was at the time, like that week, right, there was all this chaos in Haiti, and there was this proposal being floated for a U.S. led force to be sent to Haiti, and so I'd actually Sohrab Ahmari, my favorite human being in the subcategory of in a civil war, we'd probably be trying to kill each other.
We salute each other on the other side, yeah.
There'll be it's this real friendship there. Have a have a glass of whiskey first, but like, but
we love that Sohrab Ahmari. We love him.
But in any case, he was then the main editor at Compact, and he'd already asked me earlier that week if I'd write something about that Haiti intervention thing. So what I wrote is I think it's called like Hands Off Haiti or something, but it's a very it's a very angry extended subtweet of the conversation with Yarvin, right? Like which I remember I was like sitting in my brother's yard in LA, just before the live show we did, like banging that out, and I had, so it's all sort of written in this format of like, if you think what happened in the 19th century is completely irrelevant, like, is that, how about how about this that happened in the 1930s? How about this is in 2002? Is that recent enough for you, right? Is this,
Well, wasn't I just read in Jack? I'm like catching up on. If you guys can see, I have a lot to catch up on. Well, it's my fault because I read like 5 books at a time because I'm like, I need a political book, I need a history book, I need a novel, and I need a nonfiction book, and I need a spiritual book. Okay. But like,
And a
I'm also,
grimoire.
yeah, well, I need the diversity of thought, but like, I also have subscriptions, you know, magazines, but I had to stop them because I got so behind catching up on my like Jacobin from like the Bye Bye Bidenism one, that like that issue, and that had the, you know, this how it has like the breakdown of all like the world events that are happening, and like had this really cool graphics about like Haiti and like how I didn't even know too. There was like what in the early 1900s, the U.S. did something with the financial gold or something. What was that? I think you're muted.
You're
Ben.
muted, Ben.
So like the sort of core thing here, right, is after.
And why did they have to pay them reparations?
So okay, so the core
To
thing
buy themselves out of slavery.
is basically after the Haitian Revolution, in order for France to eventually agree to let them be, they had to pay reverse reparations, right? You know, that for the lost property.
So basically,
right?
the French were like they were like, you need to pay us back. Fine.
Yeah, exactly, right. That there was this that they had to pay again reverse reparations. They had to pay reparation for the lost property in the Haitian Revolution.
Well, somebody please think about the slave owners.
Yeah, exactly. Dégueulasse.
And then in the 20th century, right? I mean, in the 1930s, actually, right? They have like the U.S. I mean, there were a couple, right? You know, but the U.S. Had a long-term invasion and occupation of Haiti, and during that, they made an arrangement where they did not cancel the debt, but basically it was transferred to a U.S. bank, and so Haiti was finally done paying off the debt, I believe, in the like late 40s or maybe even early 50s of the 20th century.
How am I not supposed to put a motherfucker back? Really?
And it took a huge portion of GDP like every year. And like so I think, and then like again, if you want to go through the timeline here, there's a like maybe a couple of years between finally paid off the debt and being saddled with the Papa Doc Duvalier regime, which the U.S. backed for standard, you know, Cold War reasons, which was this absolutely hideous death squad regime, Papa Doc, and then Baby
Voodoo
Doc.
Death Squad.
Yes, Voodoo Death Squad, exactly.
Nice.
And then, you know, Baby Doc was overthrown in the 1990s. If this starts to become at all relevant to the causality of the, you know, current conditions in Haiti, right? You know, this is
nope, not relevant at all. It's just who they are. It's just who they are.
In the 1990s, you know,
although
Jean-Bertrand Aristide became the first like elected president after that, on the inspired, you know, the running on the slogan, and I'm not making this up, he said he was going to raise the Haitian people from misery to poverty, and was then overthrown by a military coup, which I guess there's no direct evidence that the CIA had advanced knowledge of it, but there were definitely people who had been on their payroll who were involved. And then you know, Clinton did put him back, but then he was removed again in 2004. This time directly by U.S. Marines.
Why?
And then yeah, there was
claimed that they were in a very kind of Hollywood retcon narrative. They claimed to have removed him for his own protection.
Oh yeah,
which is not what he says. But and then yeah,
I believe them. I trust them.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think you have the last U.S. troops leaving the island in like 2011.
And then an earthquake.
and then you have.
Oh my god!
And then you have Moise, who's president of Haiti, and by the way, I should say, like in like the stuff I'm skipping over here, right? Laval is the Aristide's party, which is, obviously incredibly large and popular, was prohibited from participating in multiple Haitian elections, etc. 2021, I think you have Moise, who was the president at the time, who was assassinated by somebody who, again, who's to say, but certainly seemed to have a lot of Miami connections. And then I was debating Yarvin like the year after. So, this is
who knows this? This is why, like, history is just a quick tangent and go back to Yarvin, but it's just like, that's the point, right? It's like, the more you know, and this is why they hate universities so much, right? This is why they hate education so much. Cause like, when you don't know this shit, you can listen to someone like Yarvin and be like, yeah, I mean, the more racist you are on the spectrum, but like again, how you're raised too. Like, if you're raised like a white girl in the suburbs, away from everything, you're raised to believe, oh yeah, it's just bad in downtown Toledo because like people are just bad there. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. Not having anything to do with like deindustrialization of the Midwest, not having anything to do with like resources and power and, history. Like, and when you don't know anything about Haiti, when you don't know anything about this history, you can have this, there's this vacuum for these there's a void for these like, asshole fraudsters to just come in and be like, it's just because they're, like that. Like, and you don't have any context for it.
And they hate,
and they weaponize it.
The idea of being fact checked in any way. Right.
Right.
And
which is why I'm shocked that he even has debates with people like you and that Harvard professor.
The point of debating, I mean, we're not in the Greek agora, right? Philosophy, it is not. The Gish Gallop is basically kind of quant sabermetrics of how to score points in structured, American style debate. And I think that that's another case where you have people whose job it is to convince and to spin, and who feel like they should have control over the information available to their audiences, right? They want to be gatekeepers of knowledge. They really resent the notion that there might be expertise out there that can outrank them, that can set them straight and foreclose that sort of, let me just validate all of your prejudices about Haiti, rather than looking to answer a single question from the record that we can look up on Wikipedia.
So going back and connecting some dots, right? I mean, part of the way he set up all of this is, I remember him saying at one point in that debate that, well, everybody, like, if you go back a few hundred years, if you read like 18th century writers, whatever, right, whatever date he gave, right, as the cutoff, everybody just took it as a given, right, that the world was divided into different peoples who were like essentially different in their character, and which is the sort of thing that just strikes me as like, I don't know. Yeah, a few hundred years ago, people believed all kinds of stupid bullshit. I don't know what to tell you.
Technology I just read about that in this history book about like magic and shit. Like people, like which they're doing now, like people's faces and like physical attributes, like it's just like in the early like 20s and stuff. Like that was a huge thing. Like, oh, see, this means that person's like that because of like their face shape and whatnot.
You have the sloping forehead of a stagecoach.
Yeah,
exactly. But like a big part, like, again, because so much of this stuff, this is how the Haiti stuff came up, was in this back and forth about, sort of history of U.S. foreign policy. And it was really, like, I think goes right to the, nub of Yarvin's shtick, that his big complaint, right, was that, well, I was just parroting things that I'd read historians say, and this is not apparently the correct procedure to find out what happened in the past. What you're supposed to do, if you're clued in like him, is to go on, what was it, Google Scholar, Google Books, right, and like find
He said you've only read Zinn. That looks like you've only read Howard Zinn, you know.
Yeah, although he did also, it wasn't like, because if it was just Zinn, then the point might have been like, oh, I'm only reading like a certain kind of left-wing popular historian. But like he did say a couple times, like, oh yeah, most historians agree with you, and that's the problem, right? You know, that's like, you know, because you should be like bypassing that, right? You should be getting like, you know, yeah, the Google Books account or whatever, and like reading these memoirs, you know, by participants, which seems really weird to me, right? Because the, you know, memoirs are like fun, but I mean that's like generally the least reliable way to find out anything, right? Because people are trying to justify themselves, you know, decades after the past, and you know, making everything fit that. But I think it goes to what you were saying earlier, Cynthia, because I think Yarvin's whole thing, like the whole rhetorical approach, right? I think this is what you're really getting at, is designed to convey the impression that he knows what's really up. He has access to these special truths that the normies don't know. And the real appeal, right, is not because, like, he doesn't, I mean, the man doesn't really make a lot of arguments in any normal, straightforward sense, right? Like,
I was shocked in your debate with him. I was like, I don't even, how are people, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, he doesn't really bother with that usually, right? Like, what he does is he conveys the impression that, you know, again, he's the guardian of this special or forgotten truths, and so the whole appeal is, oh, if you come on the inside with him, right, then you'll be in there, you know, sneering at the clueless normies with him.
Mm-hmm. Fools.
You'll be initiated.
With the leather jacket is real. I will say, in terms of aesthetics, like he has improved his like I watched the recent debates with him, and there was one that like Unheard, and I was like, look, like he looks good. Like his jacket. I mean, his spirit feels very tired, and like deflated. But like the jacket, the motorcycle boots, like it's, you know, it's giving upgrade for sure. Whereas in your debate with him, he felt very frumpy, let's say. And like the contempt was easy. Like the contempt was, I guess, a little more clear in his overall vibe. Whereas ever since the aesthetic upgrade, he's a little more like on his like bad boy streak, which I think is like somewhat effective.
Well, so he was interviewed in the New York Times last year, right? Like it was the beginning of last year, about a year ago. He like at the time there was this resurgence of media interest in him because again JD Vance has praised him before. Like probably the most time I've ever spent talking to reporters at mainstream publications was then for that reason, right? Because I'm like one of the people who's talked to him, and so he was interviewed in the New York Times. It's a really funny interview in many ways because like there are a lot of times when he's like asked some he's asked some question.
Oh God.
And he like starts to bloviate about all this like sort of vaguely related stuff. The report, you know, and the journalist is like, okay, but like that's not what we're.
I was going to bring up that JD Vance. I was going to bring that up because I watched a little blip of that. I wanted to finish it, but I'm like, again, like as a journalist, that's how you frame the question. What was the JD Vance thing? It was like, how invested do you think JD Vance is in democracy? It's like, we all know that he's not. So, or like we all like, I hate when journalists do that. You know what I mean? It's like they want to do some weird gotcha. And it's like, don't you understand human psychology? Like if you're going to get, you know, Kirsty Noem or whomever, and you're going to be like, don't you think that was wrong? Like, you really think they're going to be like, you're right. Like I was wrong. I lied. Like, you know, people aren't going to do that. So if you're trying to get him to say, no, I don't think.
So here's
what I'm saying. Like,
here's what he says, right? This is the response to how invested do you think JD Vance is in democracy? It depends what you mean by democracy. Always a promising start, right? You know, in terms of how people are doing.
Always doing this about the word, yeah.
The problem is
We're
when
talking
people
murder or murder.
exactly. The problem is when people equate democracy with good government. Again, I don't think anybody's doing that. I think they mean like, you know, rights and voting and shit. But
Yeah.
I would say that what JD Vance believes in is the government should serve the common good. I think that people like JD and people in the broader intellectual scene around him would all agree on that principle. Now, I don't know what you mean by democracy in that context. What I do know is that if democracy is against the common good, it's bad. And if it's for the common good, it's good.
That's what I texted you. It was like, what is the common good? Who gets to decide what the common good is?
Yeah, it's you know
what's the question? Like,
what's important is that you know government does things that he wants it to do. Again, if we you know the traditional procedure is that if government is doing things that you know most of the people being governed think aren't good, then it can be voted out of office. And I think that's what the question was about.
right?
Is whether he agrees that should continue to be the procedure.
Yeah, I think that he might prefer that a disproportionate amount of influence be concentrated in people who know about the Antichrist, for instance.
Yeah. So don't you think, as a journalist, you would want to pick that apart? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because you know that he doesn't that Yarvin doesn't believe in democracy, and that by nature of him being related to JD Vance, like JD Vance is keen on his ideas. So wouldn't you want to say, like, what is your vision? What do you think JD Vance's vision as it pertains to like creating a monarchy and getting rid of democracy? Or do you know what I'm saying?
So it says there was reported in 2017 by BuzzFeed. They published some emails between you and the right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos, where you talked about watching the 2016 election with Peter Thiel and referred to Thiel as, quote, fully enlightened, unquote. What would fully enlightened have meant in that context? To which Yarvin responds, fully enlightened for me means fully disenchanted. When a person who lives within the progressive bubble of the current year looks at the right or even the new right, what's hardest to see is that what's really shared is not a positive belief, but an absence of belief. We don't worship these same gods. We do not see the New York Times and Harvard as divinely inspired in any sense, or we do not see their procedures as the ones that will always lead to truth and wisdom. We do not think the U.S. government works well. Very much not an answer, but he says, the reporter asks, and this absence of belief is what you call enlightened. Yes, it's a disenchantment from believing in these old systems. And the thing that should replace that disenchantment is not, oh, we need to do things Curtis's way, is basically just a greater openness of mind and a greater ability to look around and say, we just assume that our political science is superior to Aristotle's political science because our physics is superior to Aristotle's physics. What if it's not so? Which it's like, again, trying to pick out anything that resembles an argument here is really hard. There's so many. There's so
also a rhetorical technique of his. He'll take something which is, for instance, try to prove some continuity, some ancient pedigree for his weird neo-reactionary pastiche. He'll do something like this. He'll say, "Oh, well, Aristotle was talking about something."
Yeah.
And
all the time.
He knows that his audience vaguely associates, Aristotle as some good and wise. And he doesn't do the work of connecting Aristotle's political science, whatever that means, to his own political project. He just allows users to equate them mentally, right? Aristotle was into some old-timey wisdom, big brain, political science shit, so Yarvin must be as well.
Yes.
We're going to trust Yarvin to characterize Aristotle correctly for us.
Yeah. Muted.
The only, I mean, if you were going to try to like boil this down to like, what is he actually literally saying, right? It would just be like, oh, I know stuff. You just got to open your mind, right? I mean, that's kind of it, right? I mean, the Aristotle reference, again, it's, I mean, if you actually like take this really literally, it's like, well, I don't know, Aristotle said the best yeah, I mean, I'll generously assume that he didn't agree with Aristotle that some people are natural slaves, but putting that aside, right, Aristotle says that the best constitution mixes elements of democracy, aristocracy, and monarchy. So, is he saying that? If so, that would be nice to say out loud and in so many words, and to give us some reason to think it. But again, he doesn't do any of that. I mean, like, there are all sorts of there are many like ways that he could look at like actual arguments, for democracy, of which many people have made over the course of the last few hundred years, and like tell us what he thinks is wrong with any of that. But you just get these like ludicrously silly straw men about what is it, well, if you think democracy just means good government, or you must think that like our political science is better than Aristotle's political science because our physics is better than Aristotle's physics, which is a thought that nobody has ever had, right?
It's so manipulative. I'm sorry to be sorry to be woke, guys, but it's so abusive. Like, it's like very manipulative. It's like very much like, well, I mean, you said that I hit you, but like, it depends on what you mean by hitting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so weaponized. Yeah, like it just.
I'm not saying that women should shut up and be treated as less than a horse. I'm just saying that Aristotle said that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just very, very manipulative.
Yeah. Although it is an important distinction between him and Bronze Age pervert, I feel like he's more like Iron Age pervert.
Yeah, and I haven't read any of Bronze Age pervert, but I'm like familiar of his place in the sphere.
Yeah.
Universe.
Yeah, the universe. Yeah, which, well, listen, I can be our little sometimes our little boots on the ground. I'm like the drop site news reporter on like the ground zero of the like literary alt-right concentric circle scene in downtown New York. And
this might be the most elaborate way I've ever heard somebody say that they've gone to some Times Square parties.
I'm telling you that like I'm not even seeking things out, but then people tell me shit, and I'm like, that's interesting. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, so tell me about da 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 da. You know what I mean? But they'll just be like, yeah, I was at Yarvin's wedding and like XYZ.
Yeah. You're doing like the opposite of Sex in the City. No Sex in the City.
Yeah, it's like hell. It's like the what's that Stranger Things?
Incels in the City.
Yeah, incels in the city. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So yeah. All right. I do want to go back to the situation and the solution. We're not going to read through the we're not going to read through the remaining 12,000 words or so of it. But
the part about the Babylonian demon.
Is that it? I was going to print this out and it said 31 pages. I was like, hell no.
Well, before we do the Babylonian demon, right? It says changes in the long-term power also matter, and immigrants that they don't generally vote create future voters. I assume that's his way of saying having kids. By the way, there was apparently there was some little scandal recently about some poetry journal that published a poem by Curtis Yarvin, and a bunch of people who'd been associated with the journal got mad about it, and but in the poem he's like talking about he has a kid, he's talking about raising kids, and it's all this like sort of weird mixture of it's poetry, it's sort of layers of analogy or whatever, but like he he's like talking about kids, but like he uses this like poetic analogy. They came to come from the stars to replace us. So, his man's got replacement on his mind. But yes, the in a generation, you have people whose parents were immigrants who were deported, and eventually they'll grow up to vote. This is how they got California. Which, yeah, I guess that's how they got California, the emerging Democratic majority. But Trump's numbers in absolute and long-term context are tiny. The U.S. Has not seen real mass immigration yet, or mass remigration. Biden's wide open border with its human ant trails. Let's linger on that for a second. I think it's generally a bad sign when you're comparing human beings to insects, but its human ant trails winding up through the Darien Gap from every hive on the planet is closed. Yay. Easily be opened again. Indeed, it can be opened much wider. And if we lose again, it will be. It only takes one judge to decide that no person is illegal. And this is far from the only bureaucratic way to skin that cat. The symptom has not been durably cured. It is still a fail. The border is not the only thing that will be open much wider. If you had anything to do with this little failed revolution, they'll prosecute everyone for anything. They will treat Trump appointees like January 6th trespassers, even if you had some obscure cultural or scientific position, and who knows if they would be wrong. That phrase at the end about who knows if they would be wrong is weird, right?
We might actually be held accountable for what we did.
Yeah, that's a strange. Isn't that strange? I mean, I guess the benefit of not having an editor is some of his stream of consciousness comes through. You know what I mean? Like some interesting admissions. It's like, is that a little? You know what I mean? Is that a little admission of
Yeah,
I think he may be telling on himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if our little revolution, fails, then who knows? Maybe people will be. Maybe people will be prosecuted for every little time that they fired 3 times into the SUV of a woman who was trying to leave the scene. Perhaps you'll even be prosecuted for trying to cover up the person who did that. Anything is possible. It's just going to be horrible for us. What's that? Demon.
I thought he was saying something. Oh, demon.
Okay.
Perhaps they'll be prosecuted for storming someone's house with guns without a judicial warrant and taking the woman's husband. A video I just saw last night.
All right, I'm trying to find the Babylonian demon goddess. I don't see this exact
Is
word.
it another essay?
Oh, that could be. So he says, I do find Machiavelli will tell you, again, old-timey, smart, some implied authority. And let me just text Kuba real quick to see if we lost
Where'd he go? The altar is no longer sacred. Old gods are departed.
Yeah, so yeah, we have Machiavelli will tell you there's nothing left of the ancient rites. The altar is no longer sacred. The old gods are departed. The temple of the state is a trap, a haunt of demons and monkeys. Your sacrifice is not even holy. It is a cruel blasphemy. Conservatives, your wife has barely let you kiss her in years. That is an interesting stream of consciousness.
I know, right?
Yet you keep paying for her abortions. What?
Yeah, what? I mean, is he saying you're cucked ass bitches? Is that what he's saying?
I guess.
I was like, does he mean paying for abortions from someone else? Like, as implying that your wife is sleeping around and you are a cucked ass bitch who's paying for. That was intense. That was like, wow.
Yeah, let's just replay the tape there. Conservatives, your wife has barely let you kiss her in years, yet you keep paying for her abortions. It's a problem, but it's not the problem. It is a symptom of the problem. Yes, marriage is sacred. Earth calling.
What was
What?
that?
Earth?
Yeah, I don't know what that meant.
You don't have a marriage, you have a fetish.
That
Okay.
is extremely like giving me some insight into this person's, you know what I mean? Like very, very like, oh wow, so that's what you're going through, you know?
Part of what we see with all of these reactionary thinkers too is the way that he talks about California, for instance, the possibility that California might be liberal leaning because there's a whole bunch of white liberals that have always been citizens, um, rather than this demographic replacement by um, suspect third world immigrants, uh, is something that he doesn't even entertain. Uh, and the only way that white leftists are at all acknowledged is through this gender dynamic where they're the wife that is sleeping, cucking you with Tyrone, and humiliating you and belittling you. And that's also the only way that he can claim any kind of populism or popular mandate, any connection with any argument that there's a majority position that he's defending. Because if you just define American, right, the American people, the people that count, as aggrieved white males, then yeah, absolutely. Curtis Yarvin is the voice of the people.
Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about the situation. It's time to talk about the solution.
Talk about the solution.
The solution is a real political party. So he says, as President Milei of Argentina has pointed out, we need to take all the power. If we don't have the power, they have it. This has been the attitude of all successful regime changes in history. It is also increasingly the attitude of the young right in the 2020s all around the world. But what is this? What does this attitude mean for practical politics? First, what is the goal? Let us assume that actually winning takes much, much more power than even the second Trump administration at start put out. How much do we actually need? If an example from the lives of those now living is needed, here is one that went too far, in my view, but is considered totally legitimate by everyone. Allied military government in Germany in 1945. We all agree that if there's a government in Germany that went too far in the 1940s, it would be the one that was set up by the Allies in 1945.
I like the Nazi dog whistle.
Yeah, love that.
Some might say that the Allied military government's denazification process did much to wipe out the previous regime. Few today would say it did too little. Start by copying that, then tone it down where that feels safe. All the old plans and procedures are easy to find. But how could this happen? How could we generate this much power? 1945 was the result of total war and devastating invasion. America could not invade itself. It could not even have a civil war, but not because everyone's become too enlightened, just because neither side could, quote, get it up, unquote, while we're doing the psychosexual stuff. Whether you find this reassuring or depressing may depend on your own testosterone level. The political energy just doesn't exist. The energy does not exist. That is, it does not exist spontaneously. Faith in spontaneous action is the hallmark of the late 20th century conservative. God will take care of it, or something. The political energy does not naturally exist. This does not mean it cannot exist. This means it has to be engineered. So let's engineer it. America needs a new kind of political party, which is actually an old kind of party, a hard party. A hard party is a party designed to take unconditional control of the state. A hard party is a party in which all members delegate 100% of their political energy to the party's command. Joining a hard party is a political marriage, not an election night hookup with any random politician.
You guys, okay, keep going.
Name on lawn sign catches your eye. A hard party is a legal private organization whose goal is to become the ruling party of the next government, like the CCP in China. Its voters will elect this government, its officers will staff it, its donors will host state dinners, its ideas will become the official ideology, the official truth.
And what's more American than that?
Yeah.
A one-party state, yes. We tried not having a one-party state. We ended up with a one-party state, right down to the DEI commissars in every office, public or private. It was a one-party state that pretended it wasn't a one-party state. It was a one-party state, but not like the CCP or any Marxist-Leninist 20th century party run on Lenin's principle of democratic centralism. It was genuinely decentralized. This categorical distinction, while not without its virtues, was not without its vices. Ultimately, it did not result in a more open society. In any case, only something can beat nothing. A decentralized one-party regime such as we today endure cannot be replaced by any new decentralized regime, one party, two party, or zero party. I do see how to do it with a centralized party, though. Democratic centralism. As Deng Xiaoping once said, who cares if the cat is black or white so long as it catches mice? And all we know is the cat doesn't catch mice. We don't seem to be able to train it to catch mice. Maybe this is because it's such a sweet and special cat. Maybe it's because it's not actually a cat, but a rabbit. He needs an editor. Maybe we don't need a special cat. Maybe we just need a regular cat. It's a deflating realization, I know. Maybe we could even get a regular cat to have a rabbit too. Maybe we're getting tired of finding mouse turds in our Cheerios. Maybe just start with the cat. That's so he is gonna soften this just slightly in a moment, but this is kind of why I called the episode Curtis Yarvin Stops Being Coy About Fascism, because this is
Let it all hang out, baby.
I mean, just to review, right, what the suggestion is. What we need is a centralized party that will command the absolute allegiance of all of its members, that will be a little bit like the Communist Party in China, but right wing, and that will then give us a centralized one-party state where the official ideology will be the official truth. And I mean, just that, like, if you're describing, like, what would all that add up to?
Yeah.
It feels like a textbook violation of every House Un-American Activities Committee requirement.
It's literally the calls coming from inside the house. Like,
Yeah. Have you ever advocated the overthrow of the United States government?
yeah. How? On the one hand, like, it's terrifying, but I was thinking about writing something that was like Trump is the best. People accelerate. It's not like an accelerationist argument. It's more like I'm grateful that these people are so mask off in their quest to prove their intelligence and power and all of these things, that they're so mask off that it's like you're doing an interview with the New York Times talking about how you want to like get rid of democracy. You know what I mean? Like, it gives the people a chance to hopefully catch up to it and put a stop to it. Because if they weren't this mask off, and if they were more quiet and scheming, then maybe, and if we didn't have people like figures like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, who like they just can't help themselves, right? Then maybe we wouldn't be in this position where we're like the warning bells are, on high alert right now and people are actually pushing back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm historically very, very skeptical, right, of the idea that at least if you put the worst people in power, then at least people will get mad and push back, and that'll sort of indirectly lead to good things.
Well, I don't think that we should like do you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's like, well, I'm going to vote for this person and not them because I think this is what we need is to like wake the fuck up. It's more like I'm going to continue to fight for and push for the things and the people that I want in power. But if I fail, at the very least, the people who are in power are kind of giving us a gift in my eye, because they're so face down, ass up. Like it's so flagrant, that like you can't ignore it.
Well, I've read a theory, an account of the last few cycles of American national politics as being a case of one party overreaching and undermining its ability to win the next election, then the next party overreaching similarly. And you
That's
have
what I'm afraid of.
people who point to this suggest that there's something um, about the BLM protests that turned off too many normies, and that abolish the police, the defund the police, abolish ICE were too radical slogans. And then you have this course correction with Trump, but then that creates its own overreach. I I'm not entirely persuaded by that argument, but one thing that is coming out very clearly is that the whole valence of righteous police officers and bad Antifa um, protesters, that's no longer a default frame for the way that um, protest movements are depicted in places like Minneapolis and elsewhere. I think there's been a huge rehabilitation and valorization of protest and other forms of direct action. And it's not because people like Antifa more, but precisely because Trump has been so masked off and that ugliness has been revealed. So now the people who were really annoying before are still really annoying, but you know that they're annoying for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean it is pretty remarkable, right? I mean the most recent poll in from for the last few days, abolishing ICE is the plurality position at this point, right? That there's that's 46% of people say yes, ICE should be abolished. 43% say no, it shouldn't, and then I guess everybody else is undecided, right? That's what, like 7% undecided that leaves. Which so I think that in that sense, I mean, there's definitely I mean, like at least a local patch of truth to the thing about the the effects of overreach. I mean, I understand that the problem is that the American people, have there's another poll I saw saying that 75% of registered voters had watched the video of Renee Good being killed, and so I think they think that that's bad. They haven't read Curtis Yarvin explaining that all power looks like cruelty if you're looking through the microscope of the internet. If you think about it, which so really we shouldn't be too hot and bothered about any given instance of cruelty.
Isn't the real Renee Good our collectively crushed white male egos?
Yeah, well, I think that's what I was just going to say. Like, what is so annoying to me about these people is like, and I hate to say these people, but I'm sorry, these people, what's so irritating to me is like their idea of authoritarian control, like, controlling them and surveilling is like cultural, it seems. It's like, oh, you told me I can't say
It's
the F
HR
word.
departments and judgmental women.
Yeah, it's like it's like this psychosis of like the HR smarmy liberal DEI woman who's like, you can't say that, and it's like, but what like I mean, there's no mention of any policy, right? Like there's no policy, there's no legislation. It's just all about power. It's all about dominance, and they're like their revenge. Like remember at the turn of 2025, Steve Bannon's big speech at the Young Republicans Gala or whatever was just all about like revenge, like we're taking our revenge. It's like, revenge on what? Like we still, like you still dominate, like the kind of those kinds of economic sensibilities are still pretty dominant in our society. Like I think they're just pissed off that they aren't part of the culture. that like liberal moderate culture is dominant in our society, and that one, they're not part of it, and or they're rejected from it, or two, they're like they've been like policed by it, but then their revenge is like actually using authoritarian state power to like kill people and like, you know, and like terrorize communities, and like using like physical, you know, surveillance and policing and terror,
Yeah,
which
they're
is just fascinating.
And
they're
they're also
definitely
not
not
very
gonna
good at it.
group reading at the KGB bar now.
Yeah, like it just, yeah, it just seems more like a psychological hurt that they then retaliate with like physical, you know, power, abusive
Yeah,
abusive use
It
of
actually
power.
it feels as though there's been this. I think that their perspective is that the implicit promise of America was that if you were a mediocre white male, you'd be taken care of, right?
Mhm.
You would. It's your country, it belongs to you. Its bounty is yours in the first order. And maybe if there's a surplus, it can go to probably first, Black American men, then maybe there's something for the immigrants, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. And that there's a violation of the cosmic order when there is a single lesbian of color that has a place above you in the org chart, right?
Mhm.
The That should reflect the Aristotelian great chain of American being, right? With the identity categories uh, percolating down. And in order to reestablish that, right, like given that the correct order of the universe has been torn asunder, it must be repaired with blood.
Mm.
I mean, I think there is something interesting to be said about the ideological differentiation among different groups of people who might share a lot of the same resentments here, and who might sort of like rub shoulders in the milieu of the the new right or whatever, which we're talking about here, because like, okay, uh some of them are like old style Catholic theocrats, and I can, I mean, I at least understand that, right? As they say in the Big Lebowski, at least it's the ethos, right? But like that's a sort of like well understood, quantity. A little confusing to me what the game plan is in a country that's extremely secular and also like majority Protestant. But whatever, right? Like I at least like get what you're talking about if that's you. Um, and you have people who like JD Vance, who is like a sort of, I mean, I would say a pseudo populist grifter, but like at least sort of claims that he's speaking out of populist outrage on behalf of exactly the same hillbillies who he tut-tutted for their culture of poverty back when he wrote Hillbilly Elegy before he started his current shtick.
He knows them well. He knows them well.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like in Hillbilly Elegy is like a very neoliberal book, like explicitly, right? It's that
That was him auditioning for the lizard people.
Yes. Wait, how so neoliberal? Because I haven't read it. I really
So the whole point of Hillbilly Elegy is him scolding them for their culture of poverty, basically.
kind of like the Haitians.
Yeah,
They're just like that.
Exactly, right? Like, I mean, like a certain kind of lib loved Hillbilly Elegy in 2016.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was telling them what they wanted to hear, which is that these dumb yokels who voted for Trump were the
The
cause of,
porables.
the cause of all their own problems, and
Yeah.
we didn't have to feel bad for them. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of like he's doing the equivalent in Hillbilly Elegy of the sort of black conservative Manhattan Institute guy who's like there to like say that people in the inner city just need to pull up their pants.
And then all of them can point at the token black guy and be like, see?
I would draw a distinction between the way that hillbillies are imagined being like people who need to get their act together versus the way that Haitians or Latin American immigrants are portrayed, which is as actual orcs, right?
Right.
There's no interest in civilizing, just destroying, no interest in understanding. They just do evil because that is their nature.
Yeah, I think that's right. But he is doing culturalist tut-tut in Hillbilly Elegy. Back then, he was at the very least a kind of never Trump conservative. I mean, last year, right, there were these emails that he exchanged with a college friend who, she I think got pissed off enough about Vance that she released that she like
Hitler stuff.
sent all the emails to the New York Times, and that's where we find out that in 2016, Vance said he couldn't decide whether Trump was just some asshole like Nixon or potentially America's Hitler, which is a minor landmark. It's the first time in American electoral history, as far as I know.
I mean, who cares?
Politician A has gone from calling politician B Hitler to being politician B's running mate. But like when he did his big pivot, right? So like this is like 2016. He's this he's this like at least sort of never Trump conservative who is telling like liberals a lot of things they want to hear, right? Shitty kind of liberals. And then over the course of the next few years, he does this hard right pivot by the time he runs for Senate in 2022. I remember writing about that at the time for the Daily Beast. There was a fun fact. I mean, this is not like some discovery I made, right? I mean, people had already found it. I was just like sort of searching through it. But fun fact, when I was writing about this in 2022, like the big source I was using to like find out all this stuff about Vance was when he first started running for Senate, he had one donor basically, right, of any significance, who was Peter Thiel. And eventually, right, he got, like they managed to procure the Trump nod, and he he had lots, but originally there was just one donor. And of course, annoying election laws mean that you're only allowed to donate so much to a candidate's campaign.
Yay.
But thank God they're Citizens United, so you can donate as much as you want to a super PAC that supports the candidate. But again, annoying election laws say that you can't coordinate between the campaign and the super PAC. So because they basically had this one big donor, so he was like putting almost all of the money through the super PAC. A lot of stuff that would normally be done in-house in a campaign was being done through the super PAC, like Oppo research, and so what they did is they did it at the super PAC, but they put it all in a public Google Drive folder that was like sort of designed to not be easily found in searches. So they could say, basically, you don't have to send emails back and forth. That would be incriminating as far as coordination goes, right? You could just like maybe verbally say what the website is once, right? And then you put it all in the public Google Drive folder. But of course, inevitably, journalists found the Google Drive folder, and there's an amazing document in there that's like 100 pages of here's all the things that people might attack you with. That made for like a really fun thing to like search through and use to. It's like, no, this is pretty good stuff. But
I would love to have gotten that project,
Yeah.
gotten that contract, and then just create a 40-page appendix, which is just these are the most hurtful possible names that we came up with to call you that you should be aware of. You know, that they might eventually start circulating, might be used against you. Um, I, I think we've got like we should really dig deep and do another 20 pages just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, exactly. So in this, so by the time he does this 2022 campaign, he's done a 180, and now he's like the populist champion of these hillbillies who grew up with. He actually didn't grow up with. He like he's literally talking about like spending some summers with his grandma, right? You know, but West Virginia, but it which is hilarious, right? Because it's like if I wanted to play that game, I grew up in California instead of Michigan, because like
Yeah.
like oh, I spent the summer with my relatives, right? But
Where
anyway,
is he from in Ohio? Do we know?
where is he from in Ohio? I don't remember off the top
Yeah.
of my
Okay.
head.
The more south you get, more southeast you get. It is pretty
Yeah,
Appalachian.
no, the Southern Ohio is southern. I don't believe that's where he's from, but I could be wrong. But yeah, he but so yeah, by then again, there's this claim that he's this sort of populist champion of these people, and I mean, again, I think it's all sort of like extremely silly bullshit, because even at the time he came up with all these creative reasons that were like populist reasons to be against like all the stuff that the left wanted to actually help poor people. And and so it seems like, oh yeah, these like we're like the populism seems to have narrowed itself down to we're gonna help poor people in Ohio and West Virginia who are by like murdering people who, let's say for the sake of argument, are smuggling drugs that some of them will overdose on, right? Which is again kind of fascinating as far as like supply and demand, right? That you think that people are going to like stop having drug problems because
because remember how I said like what's their plan for people who have drug problems in the United States other than just trying to get rid of immigrants who bring in drugs? I've never heard anything. I've never heard a plan or a legislation about drug rehabilitation programs, healthcare, mental health care.
Yeah, no, there's none of that. So okay, but at least like JD Vance claims that he's speaking on behalf of the salt of the earth, rural Olympian proletariat.
Aesthetically, yes.
Yeah, like that's his claim, right? Who he's speaking on behalf of. The sort of I don't know, Catholic integralist factions of the new right, I guess, are outraged on behalf of God, right? But in Yarvin's case, he's not a Catholic. I mean, he's not religious at all, right? And he's certainly never pretended to give a shit about poor people. So, like, who's the outrage on behalf of, right? Like what's the retribution and the fire and the vengeance, right? Like who is it for? Who's the wrong party?
The cathedral.
Well, I mean, the cathedral is bad people, right? That's the
oh, who is it? Well, his own cathedral, which is like the Peter Thiel extended universe, right? Like when you say like the intellectual, like the pseudo intellectual class of VC tech blah blah who are like hurt and offended that they can't like dominate and control everyone.
Venture capital demigods that are prevented from blossoming into proper gods.
Yeah. And who again are just not, I mean, I think again, I think the engineer is an important archetype in our society, the mathematician, the people who are keen on computers, but it's just so fascinating how we've had this strange like revenge of the nerds, era. Like the nerds they've like taken over and like they are asserting their dominance through,
I mean, I think that
respectfully disagree. It's just the same douchebags that would be on Wall Street They
Mm,
gravitated towards Silicon Valley instead. It's
mm,
roving, out of control juvenile pod of orcas that devour absolutely everything in its wake and believe that the entire ocean belongs to them. Um,
mm.
and once upon a time, they were selling insurance when that was the big thing. And they migrated to Wall Street when that was the biggest game in town. But after 2008, there was more money in BC and California. That's where they went. The real nerds, the guys making the rockets, the guys doing all this stuff, half of them
Messengers?
are in the middle of transitioning, and you know, they're not the source of all of this.
Yeah.
Just like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk aren't proper nerds; they're just billionaires that cosplay.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that did ring true, Cynthia, is when you said that the party that he's outraged about on behalf of is his cathedral, right? In other words, like, it seems like, I mean, again, there's no, there's no pretense to at all, right, to caring about poor people, right? So we're not even doing pseudo populism here. um, it's, there's no, there's no grand religious crusade in the background of all of it. If anything, I mean, given that his, favorite part of the second Trump administration seems to have been the Doge period. It seems like what he wants to do once we've created the hard party and the one party state with the official truth and all that. Like, what he wants to do with it is mostly just, like, I don't know, closed border economic libertarianism.
Mm.
Uh, but it seems like the outraged party here is really just people who want to be part of exactly the kind of elite that he's railing against, right? Like people who
Yeah.
want to be, part of the like those institutions that he was talking about, the New York Times, Harvard, all of that stuff, right? That, like, that make up the cathedral, right? Like, I mean, it just seems like,
Resentment. Yeah.
what he's really talking about is just like surplus members of the, of this kind of, like,
It's a Turchin style um, argument almost, right? That you have a surplus of college educated symbolic analysts or whatever the term
yeah,
is for fancy professionals these days. Um, Too many of those, not enough places to put them where they might serve productively. And I've heard this as a theory to account for polarization in the United States, political polarization, because the two parties have their own set of educated, um, potential
Mm.
white collar intellectual types, and whichever party's in power uses different levers to favor their version, their set of that
Mm.
segment over
yeah,
the other. With generally speaking, the Yarvinites being losers in the system, right? They do not have advantages under a DEI framework, and they aren't good they don't have the social skill to sort of play along and adapt to different types of office environments or different types of professional expectations.
That's a very key
Um,
point.
so they're frozen out of what they believe their rightful place should be. They look upon
Mm.
um, those kinds of institutions with envy, not even so much at the material benefit, because there's not a lot of money in being a reporter at the New York Times, but they resent them the status and recognition comes with those institutions, which unfortunately will adhere for as long as they're storied. So that gives another um, explanation for why you've got this scorched earth approach to the
Mm.
old institutions, and then you're going to build your new awesome cool ones like Barry Weiss's Free Press.
Yeah, there's one part that I screenshot. Also, too, I just want to reiterate this tweet from this guy Gideon Rockman. He said Trump's obsession with getting the Nobel Peace Prize reflects a broader MAGA phenomenon, craving for acceptance and praise from a liberal establishment they claim to despise. It's so true. It's like these entrenched establishment institutions. It's like. And I think that there's a legitimate critique in that, in terms of how, like, maybe we all, to a certain extent, crave, acceptance from these institutions. I mean, like, I'm a writer who doesn't write, but I'm a writer and like a filmmaker, and like, I would want to get recognized in the New York Times or Vogue I mean, there's a reason why Jeff Bezos is like buying Vogue for Lauren Sanchez, right? Like, but no, this part I wanted to highlight. Hold on. No, there was a part about it. Okay, you guys can.
So yeah, I mean, if you read like Musa, my apologies, Musa El-Garbi's book, We Have Never Been Woke, The Cultural Contradictions of a New Elite, right? He talks in there about symbolic capitalists, which is a phrase I have nitpicky objections to, but neither here nor there for the moment, right? And you certainly know what he means, and it's like, look, yes, of course, yes, who wouldn't want some recognition, right? From institutions, nothing wrong with that. I think that, but I think that really is, in a certain sense, I mean, the beginning and the end of the game here, right? That it's not that he wants to, that he thinks that, like, big media, academia, right, these sort of sources of cultural power that he's obsessed with. It's not that he thinks that they're doing too much gatekeeping because we should like let 1,000 flowers bloom. It's certainly not that he thinks they have like too much money and we should redistribute it away from them or anything like that, right? It's that he thinks that the wrong people are doing the gatekeeping, right? That people who, as you say, right, they might have lost out because they had the wrong characteristics to for like DEI stuff. They might have lost out because they were too based and or try to come up with a more sensitive way to put this that doesn't involve throwing around words like autism.
Also, it's just a much more competitive professional environment now that compared to the heyday of the 40s through 70s.
Well, that's an important distinction, right? Like, considering how the economics have shifted since like mid-century, and in terms of like being able to like become a part of these institutions or compete within these institutions or get recognized within these institutions.
And similarly, in the past, when there was quotas or just rampant discrimination along racial and gender lines, that's the period, as well as a high water mark in terms of American economic growth and dynamism. That is the implicit birthright that a lot of people like Yarvin claim, that the entire expression, "This is what they've taken from you," right?
Yeah.
And so he sees himself as, right, the pretender to, I don't know, tenured chair in philosophy at Harvard. And it is only through at least Berkeley, right? And it's only through great cosmic injustice and the treachery of women that Judith Butler is warming his seat.
Yeah, a grievance, envious politics.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. I think it's like pretty explicit if you read this stuff with that in mind, right? That like Yarvin has a worldview where we're always going to have elites. We always have. We always, we always will. There's no point to try to do anything about that. Um, if we'd even want to, which I don't think you would. But it's that's just a baseline. The question is who gets to be in it, and it seems like the real nub of the complaint is that it's the smarmy libs who are in it, and not the epic base guys who have read all the same books he has, and maybe got a talking to for HR in 2014 because they used the N word at work.
Yeah, and I just real quick, I just wanted to point out that part where it's very clear, like you said, he talks about like the hard party, which that did not hit me until you said it and the way that you said it. The hard party, but how he talks about like this, we'll have our own trained AI, we'll have our own encyclopedia. I love this part where he says, if you like movies, all the best writers and directors will be at the party for good. And then listen, pay attention to this line. For good reason, as it may well fund their productions. It's like, go back to work, Matt Walsh. Like we'll have you in our party. We'll have you in our hard party because you need us to fund your productions. It's like wanting to create this little monoculture or this institution that they rule and that they have dominance and control over so that they can like be a part of it because they feel like they've been shut out of it.
It's the whole Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Daily Beast film industry project, right? Like writ large. Except a hard party wouldn't, in the way that he's imagining it, if it won, it wouldn't be where you went if you're an artist in order to get funded. No, if he's talking about all of the best artists, all of the best directors, all of the best writers, well, if we're talking about people of truly extraordinary talents, then they're going to be able to make money inside or outside. They'll connect to sources.
They don't
If the it's not the sort of superstars, right, that are at issue. Those people you can only shut down coercively, right, by censoring things that are associated with them through blacklists, that sort of thing. The fact that he's emphasizing funding for me reveals that he's talking to people who are aspirational, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the implicit promise, right? Just like when a new social network or social media drops, there's that gold rush period before the stars emerge and the stratification has taken hold, where anybody can try to scramble for their 20 acres of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think when he says the best directors, he means the directors who are going to be the most successful because they've effectively curried favor, right?
Yeah, the ones that we've chosen to be best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, remember, there's going to be an official truth.
Just completely divorced from this is where like my empathy, I know guys, I'm a woman, I feel bad. My empathy comes in because I do feel the like sadness from these people of just this very basic childlike, I'm not accepted, I'm not welcome, I'm shut out. But the way that they're not conscious of that. So then the way that where they go with that is, inherently destructive.
Yeah.
They feel shut out. They feel left out.
Well,
They never get invited to parties, so they're going to start their own party, and it's going to be a hard one.
And like I said, my boots on the ground, not boots on the ground, but like, if someone has intimated to me that like,
okay, what kind of boots are they?
Okay. Okay. Well, they were heels. They were pointed to black slingbacks, just to be clear. But like, it was intimated to me that like, and this was this guy's like opinion. He's like, I think they really thought that they were like going to be part of like the late French aristocracy. Like, Like that was kind of the vibe of like the reception after the wedding of Curtis Yarvin's wedding, that like they're kind of high on this idea of being part. That's why it's interesting that you brought up the French Revolution. I feel like there's echoes of that, you know. It's like they really want to be this type of like French aristocracy, you know, of a society where they have favor and dominance, but of course at the expense of everyone else's freedom.
Yeah, I will also say that you know, if I mean, it's really, I've got to say, the last the last year has really, in a weird way, I think the Trump administration has succeeded in negatively polarizing me into being a lot more invested in like American patriotism
Yeah.
than I ever was before.
Yeah.
Because, when I see this stuff, I'm gonna here, let me see if I can share this really quick. Right, this is a post from the Department of Labor's official Twitter account. It says one homeland, one people, one heritage. Which if you don't know what's being cribbed from there, Google.
It sounds better in the native German.
Is it something having to do with Nazism?
Very, very perceptive, Cynthia.
Is it Nazi ideology? That's what I get from that video.
One homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who you are, American. And then here's the video that is.
Oh God, that, like... Yeah.
This feels like the indoctrination scene from the Parallax View when they're brainwashing the patsy to kill the great liberal hope.
Which I don't know if you guys saw. I think there was some posts of some people with like American flags like protesting in Minneapolis, and like you said about the American, like trying to, I've never felt more patriotic in my life. I actually think that the left should really weaponize this in kind of an ironic way, but in like a legitimate way.
I think we should. I think we need to unironically lean into like nice, like sort of Abraham Lincoln, Adam Finch, Henry Fox, like old style civic patriotism. Because like I've got to say, I mean, my instinctive visceral reaction to that tweet and video is I don't know what the fuck that is, but it's certainly not America.
Right.
Like this is I mean, that like everything that's good and relatively distinctive about the American experiment, and there are some of those things, right? I mean, if you're if you're too attached to a certain kind of like left-wing edgelord persona to be willing to acknowledge that, I think you need to push through that and get over it, right? Frankly, because there really are, right? And the stuff that's distinctive and good about it is exactly the things that these people are trying to get rid of, right? So, and I think absolutely we should lead into that rhetorically, right? This is America. We're not supposed to have masked secret police forces. This is America.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just crazy how every time I hear arguments from him or like Nick Fuentes being like, well, actually, like this random guy who was sort of adjacent to the founding fathers wrote in his like papers that, I'm like, so you think that like random adjacent guys to the founding fathers, we should like be like, well, actually, this is what they really meant in the Constitution. They didn't actually mean that. It's like, that's a reach, honey. You know what I mean? Like they're trying so hard to like make it seem as if the founding father, I mean, again, with all their flaws,
sure,
we're trying to establish this country as, no, it was supposed to be a white Christian nation. It's like, where does it say that? Like, does it say that?
Yeah, yeah, right. No, certainly.
Facto, but de jure,
certainly doesn't. I mean, this is the I mean, you have bits and pieces of that, but you also have like the Virginia Statute on religious freedom. You have the explicit separation of church and state of the Constitution. You have the treaty with the Barbary Pirates that that like explicitly says that it's not a Christian nation, and whatever. I mean, I'm not even like all that like hot and bothered about like who's sort of like canonically correct about the 18th century, right? I think that I think that like all what we're really talking about is a sort of complicated, messy, like heritage set of flexible symbols, all that stuff, right? But I just think that the good guys should be making a play for it, right? Like
Exactly. Don't cede all of that to the worst possible version.
yeah, no, exactly, right? It's like yeah, you have like yes, you have all sorts of ways. Like yes, if what you really like about early America was the slavery and the anti-Catholicism, right? Then like sure, you've got
Make them say that.
yeah, exactly, right. What I really like about it, right, is the religious the religious freedom, the sense of the sense of national identity that's like remarkably untethered from like any given ancestral group, like what we were talking about the other night on TIR, that like nobody says I'm a quarter American. It would sound like a category mistake. It's
Except if you look at census data, I think there's something like 20% of Americans, when asked their ethnic background,
they
will
say American.
American.
Yeah, well, so there we go. Those are the battle lines, right? I mean, the people who think that people who think American is an ethnicity, and
right? Like, isn't it like a slowly, gradually going to basically become that? I mean,
well. So this is I think that's very much contestable. I mean, I think that like that's a I think that's an open question, right? I mean, people who
I mean, Canadian isn't an ethnicity.
Yeah.
But a nationality, an identity.
Yeah. I mean, again, but I think we have. I think it is true, right? Like, I think it comes from, like, in part, it's a byproduct of like horrible things that have happened in the past. Settler colonialism and all of that. The dispossession of Native people. So it's like it asserted. So it's like to some extent like an accidental byproduct of absolutely horrible things, right? To some extent, it's a intentional product of really like good things, right? I mean, like if you I mean, if you think about the sort of successful political projects that culminated in Abraham Lincoln being elected, and the Reconstruction, the Reconstruction amendments after the Civil War and all of that stuff, right? I mean, there's like a very intentional effort to lean into the Enlightenment egalitarianism from the founding documents and sort of reinterpret that in a better way, right? So it's like, in some cases it's a byproduct of really bad things. In some cases, it's an intentional product of really good things. I think especially after the world historic victories of the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, and the end of like racist immigration quotas, helped to, sever any sort of remaining tie between like Americanness and even sort of a general broad sense of like Europeanness or whiteness, right? That there is, again, there's something, and I also think the fact that, this is also something we were talking about on TIR, right? But the fact that like, okay, France is on their fifth republic, I think, right? Like I think there was
Republic,
yeah. That their first one started just after ours did, and somehow, right? We're still on the first go, which is bad in some ways. I mean, there are certainly institutional elements that are anti-democratic and that are like left over for the 18th century, that's very bad. But the good part about it is that means that it's very easy to have a sense of national identity that's linked to those sort of core democratic institutions in a way that like you couldn't have in France, because it's our national identity is going to be entirely about the set of political institutions. They're from like the 1960s, right? That's when they moved on to number 5, right? That's so again. I mean, I think it's all messy and contestable, but like I'd like to contest it. Is my big pitch. I don't think that the worst people in the world should be allowed to just have it. And I actually take some comfort in the fact that he's such a contrarian weirdo that Curtis Yarvin is willing to just sort of openly be against all that, right? He's willing to just say, oh, actually, like, yeah, Samuel Adams was bad too. He was a leftist, and we should actually just have we should actually just have monarchies, maybe, or maybe when I say monarchy, it's a metaphor, and I mean something tech startup something, but like whatever, right? He's certainly not making a play for the American tradition. He's moved on from that. He's put on the they live glasses, and gotten outside of the 20 nested Plato's caves, and he's seen the truth. And I guess I to some extent bank on the fact that the more you have like the Department of Labor Twitter account, for example, sounds like Curtis Yarvin is running it, the less appealing that'll be to normal people.
Yeah, I think that we talked about this in the context of overreach already, that the inherent ugliness and the fact that there's a palpable un-American fashy vibe to all of the Trump 2.0 branding, that is undermining a lot of undermining confidence in the mass of Americans that really absorbed the lessons of American civic exceptionalism, the core democratic values, the fact that what makes America good is this political blueprint and not some blood and soil connection to a metaphysical people or ethnic spirit.
Yeah, no,
I
exactly.
also hate that, like, sorry, I guess these people trigger me a lot. Sorry to them. But like, I hate how it's always like this framing of like, we've seen the truth and like, we're away from the herd of like the masses. It's like, well, maybe the masses agreeing on certain principles is like a good thing. You know what I mean? Like maybe if the masses agree that like we should live in a free democratic society, it's not because they're like brainwashed and following the herd. It's just that the majority of people think that this is like good and that's good. You know what I mean? Or like the more that people learn about, say, like the history of US imperialist, activities abroad, the more they learn about why we should stop being so imperialist and evil, and that's good. It's not like because people are becoming brainwashed. It's actually because they're becoming unbrainwashed. You know what I mean? I'm like, for me, it's like, I hate this notion that like, oh, you just grew up brainwashed. I'm like, no, I grew up completely ignorant. Like I grew up in a Republican household, always listening to Fox News, went to a George Bush rally in my backyard, was not like gung-ho George, but like I didn't really care about politics. I was like a teenager, but I generally thought that like the Iraq war was good because of scary terrorists, and then the more that I learned, the more that I read, the more deprogrammed I became. Not like, it's like they completely flipped it or something. Like, oh, everyone's so brainwashed by the liberal establishment to like believe that these values are good. It's like, no, maybe.
Well, I would just point out also that like it's sort of the emptiest thing you could possibly say is, oh, you just think that because you're brainwashed. Because like,
Yeah.
okay, but like the next act, now you have to tell me why it's wrong, right? Like
What he tried to do to you a lot. Like, oh, Ben, you just haven't read enough of these like non-Howard Zinn authors. But he never
yeah, it says like, oh, this is the specific thing that's wrong, and here's why
it's your argument with why we shouldn't be a social democratic society. He didn't really prove why we shouldn't be a social democratic society. It was just like, open your mind and see the truth.
Yeah, because like if you just say, oh, you just disagree with me because you've been brainwashed, you haven't opened your mind yet, right? It's like it's I mean that's like, you know, that's really vacuous because you can say that from like literally any perspective other than the person you're talking to has, right? That like, you know, yeah, sure. I mean, like if you're, you know, like, oh, what, you know, you still believe we landed on the moon? I guess you just believe everything that they tell you. You know, it's the germ theory of disease. All right. I see I still see you're still stuck down in you know, Plato's cave. You haven't even emerged from, you know, from that cave yet. You know, just yeah, anything they tell you, you know, it's like
anything that big science, right, pushes down your throat.
Well, again, that rhetorical weaponization and manipulation of like, if I say that I believe in like Lincoln's, you know, if I say that Lincoln's speech where he says like the better angels of our like we should appeal to the better angels of our nature, like, oh, I've just been brainwashed because of Plato's blah 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 bloody blue. It's like, maybe just contend with the actual words and like argument instead of like this constant what is it, like an appeal to authority or appeal to history or something.
I mean, instead of diagnosing why I'm wrong, you could make it that I am wrong.
Right.
That would move the plot along at least. Always thought it was really, really funny that, you know, woke and red pilled are essentially the same metaphor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You haven't woken up and, you know, seen the real truth yet. It's just happenstance that somehow the right got a hold of the Matrix first, but you know, otherwise. Otherwise, it would be, you know, Curtis Yarvin accusing Chris Rufo of being in his pre-woke period.
Just a way to seem edgy, like, again, just like like trying to seem like you have something over people versus coming down to them and trying to persuade them of an argument.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right. We've been going for quite some time. I realize that we've left approximately 300 pages of Curtis's Substack on the table, but I think we hit the essential points. Want to move towards wrapping up here. Final thoughts, guys. Cynthia.
Well, final thought is I just want to read a couple of sentences from an actual writer who I think has actually beautiful prose and great ideas, which is the transcendentalist Emerson. He says, trust thyself, and it's a little bit, you know, God speaks, so sorry, Ben, but it's trust thyself, every heart vibrates to that iron string. Accept the place the divine providence has found for you, the society of your contemporaries, the connection of events. Great men have always done so and confided themselves childlike to the genius of their age, betraying their perception that the absolutely trustworthy was seated at their heart, working through their hands, predominating in all their being. And now we are men and must accept in the highest mind the same transcendent destiny, and not minors and invalids in a protected corner, not cowards fleeing before a revolution, but guides, redeemers, and benefactors, obeying the almighty effort and advancing on chaos and the dark. Oh, that's pretty beautiful. We have to advance on chaos and the dark. But to trust yourself and your own intuition, don't allow yourself to be manipulated and controlled, or obey, don't obey.
The contrast with Yarvin's prose is
well, because it's dense, right? I mean, it's like early 19th century prose, so it's more dense than what we're used to. So I wanted to give sort of not equally, but equally dense, you know, rhetoric, but that also I think leads to more of a substantial truth that feels much better than the darkness that I see in his, in the Yarvin of it all.
Yeah. Want to point out too that there was a time when we had fascists who could write like that too.
Yeah.
It's just now they're not sitting their best, right? It's all these guys who had tech jobs, and then they decided they'd start a blog.
They're not artists. And again, it's like everyone has their place in the village. Everyone has their place. And, people like Yarvin are meant to be, they have mathematical minds or, computer science, technical minds, and they have a service, but we can't allow that. The reason why we have these checks and balances, or at least most of us believe that is a legitimate system to try and have in a society. You have to put the id, the wild and chaotic id in check. And if not, it will rule you. I mean, this is like in your own life too, right? Like in your own little village in yourself, you have to know where your shadow creeps up, where your id impulses, egoic impulses creep up, and you have to put them in check. And what I feel like we're witnessing right now is just this temper tantrum on a mass scale of people thrashing because, they're like children, they're like toddlers because they can't get their way and they can't just do whatever they want with impunity. And that's what they believe they want, but they're not operating from their soul, their heart, the truth of who they are, I would argue. Because of that, they don't like mommy. They don't like mommy coming in and saying, you can't do that. We're unfortunately dealing with that at a mass scale, I think, at the moment.
Fair enough. Kuba?
Just remember that people like Yarvin take all of what gets celebrated as the achievements and the contributions of the United States, democracy, peaceful transfers of power, civil rights, equality, and call it the Babylonian hunger demon that's operating your grandma's corpse like a marionette. So I don't know what kind of values consensus or what kind of basis in a shared worldview you have to build political understanding and peace. It feels as though Yarvin has really taken himself so far out that he can't really be reconciled with democracy anymore, regardless of whether or not sort of more establishment or institutionalized Republican administration comes back. Right? He's gone full Fedayeen.
Fair enough. Well, thank you both. This is fun. Matt, glad we got it together to do this. Still just a little bit sick, but I really did not want to delay this again. And we are going to be back on Friday at a different time to accommodate Matt McManus's teaching schedule, but at 2:00 Eastern on Friday. Matt and I are going to be talking to Laura K. Field, who is the author of this book, Furious Minds, The Making of the Mega New Right. So definitely continuing on a theme there this week. So I will see people then. Thanks again to Cynthia and Kuba, and left is best.